Ahead and call this joint meeting to order, and I will open this meeting for the school board. Ms. Aller, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Cavazos.
Present.
Ms. Chen.
Here.
Mrs. Donner.
Here.
Mrs. Hunley.
Here.
Mr. Riffle.
Here.
Mrs. Ortego.
Here.
I'll call the James City County Board of Supervisors to order for this joint meeting. Mr. Stevens, call the roll.
Mr. Hippel? Here. Ms. Larson?
Here.
Mr. McGlennon?
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Here.
Present.
Good morning, everyone. I'll call the Williamsburg City Council meeting to order. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Kernshire.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Here.
Mayor Pons.
All right. Then I will promptly turn it over to Dr. Keever.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. We wanted to try to make sure the roads were clear from school buses today, so it made it easier for you to get here. The meeting that we have today, I think, is important to ground that in tangible byproducts of the decisions that are made. So as an example, this weekend, our theater teams from Jamestown and Lafayette are competing in the State Theater Festival Championships, as well as our football team will be in Loudoun County to take on, the Lafayette football team will be in Loudoun County to take on Loudoun County High School in the state semifinals. Our students are having experiences well beyond the classroom, and those experiences really help them want to be in school day over day. And so I wanted to start with that, because when we start talking about capital programming and we talk about data related to KPIs or transition reports, it all goes back to what our students are being able to experience. So with that, we wanted to provide some information and updates on capital programming for WJCC. And just recently, a member of the supervisors has said, hey, can you give us an update on some of the projects that we've previously talked about and approved? So we wanted to start with that. For instance, here is a snapshot of the refurbishment that occurred at Matoka Elementary School. It was approved in the fiscal year 23 budget, and it included new carpeting and fresh coats of paint. This project was completed probably about 13 or 14 months ago. In addition, we wanted to share with you a new view at Berkeley Middle School. The interior refurbishments at Berkeley were approved in FY24, and the project included new carpeting, additional fresh coats of paint, and some new lavatory units and partitions and restrooms. At Stonehouse Elementary School, we were able to install a walk-in refrigerator just outside the school as part of our division replacement cycle. One of the items that we've heard quite a bit about from members of our community would be the track at Lafayette High School. You can see the before and after shots at Lafayette. This was funded in the FY24 CIP. There was a need for it to be reconstructed to include drainage, surfacing, and replacing of the lines. So we're excited about that particular additional resource. Last year, at about this time, we hosted a ribbon cutting for the auxiliary gym at War Hill High School. What we have not done is shared pictures with you from Lafayette, the 900 building, where a renovation occurred that allowed us to better accommodate our non-traditional programming through the Restorative Center. This project was funded in the fiscal year 24 CIP. It included lighting improvements, some room reconfigurations, mechanical and plumbing upgrades, and then a nice fenced courtyard there at Lafayette High School between the 900 building and the main campus area. In the summer of 2025, a good 6 months or so ago, there were a number of projects that were on the operations team's mind, to include phase 1 of the Matthew Whaley HVAC construction project. We will move into phase 2 of that project this summer and hopefully have things completed before classes begin in August of 2026. Over the summer, we were able to replace the walk-in freezers at Norwich Elementary and Berkeley Middle School. We started a project at Clara Bird Baker relative to dehumidification. There was an expansion of the Jamestown High School cafeteria. And then in general, it's important for us to continue to maintain our infrastructure, so there were parking lot improvements, brickwork, and storm drain repairs. There were also playground upgrades, and we're going to show you a slide about that a little bit later. So we are thankful, as always, for our funding partners providing us the opportunity to continue to look after our resources and assets. And as we start into fiscal 27, wanted to set that as the grounding point. Renee, can you take us through the superintendent's proposed capital improvement plan?
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
It is my pleasure to share with you this morning a summary of the superintendent's proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal years 27 through 36. This plan outlines our long-range facility needs, funding priorities, and adjustments made based on maintenance cycles and cost considerations. Each project presented includes anticipated architectural and engineering costs, a contingency reserve, and cost escalation across the 5-year period at a rate of 6%. These factors help us plan realistically for inflation and design costs that often change between proposal and construction. Before sharing information about the CIP plan, I would like to review our enrollment projections from last year in comparison to our current year enrollment. Our September 30th, 2024 enrollment was 11,379, and based on this, our projection for this school year ranged from a low of 11,345 to a high of 11,833. Our actual enrollment for this year ended up less than the low projection at 11,146, which is represented by the blue line on the graph, an overall decrease of 233 students as compared to last year. This slide shows a comparison of our high school enrollment compared to the projection. Our September 30th, 2024 enrollment was 3,774, and based on this, our projection for this school year ranged from a low of 3,817 to a high of 3,991. Our high school enrollment ended up just below the low projection at 3,804, which is an increase of 30 students as compared to last year. This table shows Future Think's low projected enrollment as it compares to the division's capacity for high schools. Overall, high school capacity is currently at 96% for the current year, with a gradual decline expected over the next 10 years. This slide shows a comparison of our middle school enrollment. Our September 30th, 2024 enrollment was 2,681, and based on this, our projection for this school year ranged from a low of 2,591 to a high of 2,680. Our middle school enrollment for this year is 2,552, which is a decrease of 129 students as compared to last year. This table shows Future Think's low projected enrollment as it compares to the division's capacities for middle schools. Overall, middle school capacity is currently at 82% and is not expected to reach 90% until beyond the next 10 years. Based on this, Phase 2 of James Blair would not be needed until beyond this 10-year plan, and this will be reevaluated each year as updated enrollment information becomes available. This slide shows a comparison of our elementary school enrollment. Our September 30th, 2024 enrollment was 4,924, and based on this, our projection for this school year ranged from a low of 4,937 to a high of 5,162. Our elementary enrollment this year is 4,790 students, which is a decrease of 134 students compared to last year. With the preschool centers currently under construction and anticipated to open in fiscal year 28, this chart shows Future Think's low projected enrollment for elementary beginning in fiscal year 28 as it compares to the division's capacity for elementary schools. This table reflects updated capacity for the elementary schools, with the current pre-K classrooms being utilized beginning in fiscal year 28 for a K-2 class, which would accommodate 20 students per classroom. Comparing this new capacity with the low elementary projection from this year, elementary schools would be at an overall capacity in fiscal 28 of 82% and would continue to stay under that capacity through fiscal year 36. As you can see, without redistricting, Matthew Whaley and Stonehouse are anticipated to be over 100% capacity in fiscal 28, and DJ Montague and James River are anticipated to be at 92 and 96% capacity, respectively. With the opening of the 2 pre-K centers, there is not a foreseeable need for a 10th elementary school over the next 10 years. Added to fiscal year 2027 is the turfing of Cooley Field. This project was requested in fiscal year 26 but not funded. This project is essential to address the athletic needs of the school division to provide an additional practice and competition field for our athletes to utilize for football, soccer, and field hockey, as well as to create capacity for programmatic growth. It will provide instructional space for the James Blair Middle School Health and Physical Education Department and will be a useful resource for both the City of Williamsburg and James City County Parks and Recreation partners. We obtain updated project estimates the year prior to anticipated funding from the localities. This table shows the increased cost for the fiscal year 27 projects included in the CIP plan. Estimates provided for any projects in years 2 through 10 are placeholders and may change because of natural economic forces like inflation, labor shortages, supply chain issues, or other factors that persist longer than anticipated. Cost changes for projects in fiscal year 27 from the adopted fiscal 26 amount total $271,000 as outlined on this slide. The most notable change is the metal roof replacement at Stonehouse Elementary. The original 2020 quote was escalated at a rate of 6% with the belief that it would suffice. However, the most recent review by Mosley Architects reflects changes due to economic and market forces post-COVID with an increase in the cost estimate of $872,000. The playground repair and replacement line is also being increased by $250,000 to allow for universal access to our playgrounds to ensure all students have the opportunity to benefit from unstructured play. And field lighting at both Stonehouse and Toano has been removed from the plan to support the turfing of Cooley Field. This is a decrease of $1 million.
Renee, if I could just touch on the idea of the playground repair and replacement, excuse me. We believe that we want to continue to add to that CIP line item, and here's a perfect example on the screen in front of you of a refurbished, redone playground that is more inclusive at Laurel Lane Elementary School. The current amount that we had in the CIP does not allow us to compress the timeline to get those playgrounds upgraded and revitalized on behalf of our students. So that's why there's a $250,000 increase in that one.
These projects were part of the school board's fiscal 26 CIP, but were not carried forward in the localities plans. We are reintroducing them here for consideration in the fiscal 27 planning process. They include a bus canopy at Hornsby and centralized storage for operations. As identified in the space needs analysis conducted a few years ago, additional storage capacity is a significant operational need. Currently, we lease space on Ewell Road, shown in the 3 photos on the right, and the photo on the left shows items stored on a school loading dock due to limited space.
And that's quite frankly not a best practice to put items outside in the elements. It's covered, but not entirely sheltered. And one of the scenarios that we have as a school division as we consider purchasing desks and furniture or reconfiguring classrooms to better meet the needs of students is the need to store things that come out of one classroom and could potentially go into another classroom. The 3 pictures on the right are demonstrative of the current storage scenario that we are utilizing at the leased space. That leased space is divided into 3 rooms, and it is not a simple opportunity for us to be efficient. There are things that are stored there that we utilize in the operations front. There are things that are stored there that we utilize in the instructional front in terms of textbooks. And then finally, and in some cases to teachers most importantly, the teacher supply shop is stored and managed out of that storage area. So we believe that this is a particularly important item for us to continue to maintain strong organizational efficiency.
Here you will see some of the modifications to the 10-year plan, which include moving the middle school activity tracks from fiscal 27 to 28, adding design funds for the roof replacement at DJ Montague in fiscal 30, adding a roof replacement for the flat roof at Blayton in fiscal 31, adding a roof replacement for the auxiliary gym at Jamestown in fiscal 31 and 32, which aligns with the HVAC replacement for that gym. The capacity expansions at Jamestown and War Hill have changed to be programmatic expansions, with War Hill now proposed first as a career and tech ed center. This would allow us to expand our career and technical offerings. And then funds previously included for a new central office in fiscal 34 and 35 have been moved to 31 and 32 for a refurbishment of central office. In addition to these modifications, there are also projects added in the latter years of the plan based on the division's established refurbishment and replacement cycles for HVAC, refurbishments, flooring, and roofs.
We'll talk a little bit more about the programmatic expansion concept at War Hill in terms of career and technical education, but I can share with all three bodies that over the course of the 4.5 or 5 months that I've served in this role, the theme that has recurred not fairly often, but incredibly often, is the idea that we need more workforce readiness training and options for our students. We really appreciate and enjoy the New Horizons program that we are a part of. We also recognize that there are a number of our students that aren't able to access that programming based on available seats and or the time that it takes to move from James City County to Newport News or Hampton. And in order to better meet the needs of our students who desire this type of educational opportunity, we believe we need something in our locality that is more centrally located. Thanks, Renee.
Our CIP document presents projects by school, and this pie graph will show the breakdown by type of project. HVAC projects account for 38.6% of the total 5-year CIP, or $41.5 million. Refurbishments, roof replacements, and other repairs account for 18.3% of the total 5-year CIP, or $19.7 million. Other projects, which include things such as bus canopies, field turf, generators, and school bus replacements, account for 22.7%, or $24.4 million. And new facilities, which includes the high school expansions and a storage facility, account for 18.3%, or $19.7 million of the total 5-year CIP. The superintendent's recommended 5-year plan totals $107.5 million, with $5.3 million requested from the city of Williamsburg and $102.2 million requested over the 5 years from James City County. Some of the major projects included in the 5-year plan include turfing Cooley Field, centralized storage space at operations, and HVAC replacements at Hornsby, Blayton, War Hill, Stonehouse, and Claribird Baker. Thank you for your continued commitment to improving and maintaining our facilities. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I had one quick one about the playgrounds. I'm sure you apply for grant. It seems ripe for grant funding to make playgrounds more accessible, and I realize it's probably not going to cover the entire price tag. I just was curious if you'd had any success there.
When possible, we do try to apply for grants. One of the challenges that we have as a school division is that we don't have a central grant writer. And that's something that we have talked about internally, is that somebody to help us search for grants, write grants, and then ultimately manage grants. Because right now, each of the grants that we submit is managed individually by the person within the department where the grant sits. So we do have a number of different grant opportunities, but utilizing that resource is a challenge for us based on personnel.
I had a couple of quick questions, if I could. The first is, I understand the impact of inflation, the problems we have with a number of factors driving, whether it's labor or materials and so forth. The one thing that really kind of jumped out at me, though, is the incredible increase in the cost of generators. In one case, we're seeing a tripling of the cost, and the other nearly doubling. Is there any particular explanation why that kind of replacement is being driven so strongly?
Not that I'm aware of. When our operations team works with the vendor to get us additional and revised estimates, we give the specs, and those specs come back with what they think it may cost. So I couldn't point to a specific reason why there's an increase there.
And if I could, just one other aspect, and that is there are two areas in particular that are I think, pretty significant expenditures. So it means we really need to think carefully about what the best way to approach those would be. The first is relocation or refurbishment of administrative offices for the school system. And so I wonder if it would be worthwhile, not immediately perhaps, but within a few years to be considering, to compare the impact of relocating to the current county government complex or refurbishing at James Blair. And in a similar kind of way, whether there might be opportunities to figure out the most efficient and useful way to expand career and technical education in facilities that would really accomplish that objective.
Yes, sir. Let's deal with the first one first. You said refurbishment or relocation. We right now are talking about a refurbishment.
Right,
So
I
I think
understand
that
that.
there's an opportunity for us to further dialogue on that. The plan to need additional space for the middle school has not come to fruition, and the building that houses school board central office right now needs some tender loving care. And it is from 1954, and it has been reconfigured to the best of our ability to maximize the synergistic effects of working together to meet the needs of students, but it's not as good as it should be. There are issues underneath the building that need to be addressed. There are some issues above us that need to be addressed. And the office utilization, as you reconfigure 1954 classrooms, does not lend itself to 2025 educational conversations. So that is definitely an area that needs some addressing. We could endeavor to look at a move to the current county complex. My initial inclination there is that administratively, we believe that the school division central office needs to be centrally located. And I would contend, without looking at the geography specifically, that a move further south in the county, away from the central part of the area, would not allow us to maintain that same level of support for our community. That notwithstanding, it's important to have those conversations. I think we also agree that there needs to be further dialogue around how to improve career and technical education opportunities for our students. I also believe that when you utilize or lease space, that might be a short-term solution, but the long-term solution, I think, is to maintain and have your own space. And that's why right now we are proposing taking the expansion at War Hill and reconfiguring that into a programmatic redo and constructing a building there. But it's definitely, the reason that it moved into the 5-year CIP is to begin this conversation.
Thank you.
I could follow up on the CTE discussion, because I hear you. I mean, I hear it as well all the time, that people would like more CTE opportunities here, and getting down to New Horizons is not easy. It's one, I think, that has been struggled on numerous school boards, including the one that made the decision to take out the auto program and the construction program from Lafayette years ago, because I'm sure money played a huge role in that. And so, you know, I asked you at the school liaison meeting, were you going to duplicate programs? And have you looked at operationally the impact on the budget of, but you probably haven't altogether because you just don't know yet what you're going to offer. But I just simply bring it up because it's a cautionary, you know, it's not that we don't want more CTE offerings. I think it's very important. What does that look like? How do we pay for it? I think it's just something that school boards, boards of supervisors, city councils have struggled with all these years. So.
Yes, ma'am, and I think that's why we had it dangling in the plan in years 5 and 6, because I think it gives us an opportunity over the course of the next 12 to 18 months to really zero in on specificity around what we would want to get accomplished, and then plan forward in terms of the funding for that.
Can I chime in here for a second, just on the same CT topic? Because I was wondering if you could, for those members of the public or others who may not really understand when you're talking about New Horizons, like what exactly that is, because I think it is important when you think about setting priorities, as Ms. Larson was just talking about, 2 priorities with regard to CTE offerings and programming. Sitting where you are now, what would you say are the gaps or areas of concern that potential expansion and these projects would hope to fill? Just, you know, again, sitting here today, the ballparking.
Sure.
Yeah.
our consortium with New Horizons it incorporates Newport News, Hampton, Gloucester, Poquoson, York, and Williamsburg James City County schools. And there are a certain number of seats allocated for the programming there to include plumbing classes, HVAC classes, electricity classes, welding classes, in addition to some special education services and governor's school programming. I think that we have a number of students that participate in those programs, but then we also have students that submit applications because they wish to attend and don't get in. So out of the gate, I think our initial inclination is that mechanical programming, plumbing programming, HVAC programming are areas that we would want to capitalize on. Each of those individually has a unique design for the classroom and unique needs. So ultimately also, it would be our preference for anything that we construct to be able to be constructed in a way for flexibility that would allow us to make changes 10 or 15 years from now as the needs for workforce and CTE training continue to develop.
I'd like to add one thing I'd like you guys to consider when you are looking at the CTE programs is, alternatives. Is it, based on the need we think we have for it and the cost and the efficiency of running the programs, is it better to have a particular school like War Hill that has a program, or whether you would be replicating that in the other high schools, or we might want to consider a location in the county where we'd have a central type of in other words, our own version of New Horizons, which would be, one particular facility that would be dedicated to that type of thing. I think as we examine that going forward, it's always nice to have look at the different alternatives and see what the benefits are and what the costs are. So I just ask you to keep that consideration in your mind when you're thinking about the program.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. I went to VOTEC when it opened up the North Campus in Newport News from Lafayette, and it was a great program, and we offered a lot more at Lafayette than we offer, and of course, we had one high school. So when you have three, you're tripling all your work, and that's why. So I almost think it needs to be, I'm glad we're finally getting to this, because the trades are being paid more and more every year, and the guys and gals that are out there working in it, they're getting higher and higher pay as time goes on, because there's less amount of people that are trained and ready to go. And so I'm almost thinking that if I'm at Jamestown and I've got to go over to War Hill, and you know how the younger minds work, I got to go to War Hill to go to this. I don't want to go to War Hill to go to this. And, so I'm thinking almost as a standalone campus, it's more of it'll entice more of our younger people to go, you know what, I'm going over to this vocational center and learning there. I'm not going to War Hill or Jamestown or Lafayette. I'm going to a standalone thing, almost like what we did when we, it took 4 periods to go down, jump on the bus. By the time we went to VOTEC and then came back, we had 2 periods left, and so that ate up most of our day. And the travel was always an issue. But we made it work, and that's why. And I've been in business now, getting ready to go on my 38th year from VOTEC and from taking carpentry. So, I've seen the field change, because as I got out of it, I was on the advisory committee for VOTEC, and everybody was pushing computers at that time. You got to get into computers, you got to do computers at a way, and that was, and it was a great thing. But they left behind that. And then it almost became if you're a troubled individual, we're going to put you over there, and that's where you belong. And it kind of let people think of it differently than they used to think of it when we were one high school. And I know your challenge is 3 high schools, and what do we do? The more we have, the harder it is to divide that up. And, the nursing program and all that we had. So I think as a standalone building, centrally located somewhere within the county, is going to give you more bang for your buck as you're looking at this than connecting it to a high school, because connecting to that may connect it to what other high schools, we're always, the young men and women out there today in school are, always competing. My high school's better than your high school, and y'all don't know what this is. And, like we used to do with different jurisdictions. So I think if standalone, it would give you more bang for your buck, and it would be more of a, hey, we're going to this location, not to another high school. That's just my 2 cents.
You're not going to hear me argue about a standalone campus. We were working to be fiscally conservative in terms of building it at a property that we already had in our arsenal. But standalone campus sounds great.
And like I've said in the past, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly.
Well, and I would just,
Wait a second. Okay, I think I understand now, Mr. Hipple.
Scott's looking at me like, no, teddy bear. We want a teddy bear.
well, I just want to applaud you for thinking about this, because having our graduates be career ready, who are not going to college and going off to do some other things, is absolutely important. And so working to develop a program that meets our needs of the students, I think, is outstanding. I would offer that we also should be considering hospitality. There's great careers to be had in the food and lodging business, and so if that can be a part of the consideration, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And just one last thing, I'm sure as you all look at different alternatives, you'll take into account VPCC and see if they might be able to collaborate in some ways too. Porter Brannon is very interested in working with the community in whatever way she can.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, we can. Are there any other questions about the capital improvement program?
I had one last question, and that was your storage space. Do you guys have a spot in mind for that? I mean, what kind
Should
of?
I use Mr. Hipple's philosophy that if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly? Yes, sir. We would put that space on site where the operations center is now in the back of that piece of property.
Okay.
There is an available space there that we believe would accommodate what we're looking for.
Okay. And so that the cost of that was just the construction of that building? Then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, then we will move on to item 2.02, our annual stakeholder survey report.
As we toggle to that particular presentation, I think that it is clear to us as we work with our funding partners for a desire for more data about the school division and how things are going. And one of the survey components that we have utilized now 2 years in a row, we utilized this in the fall of '24, and then we did it again in the fall of '25, is to get some perception information from staff, from students, and from families related to two of our priorities in the strategic plan. And so this morning we want to provide these bodies with an update on what some of that data looks like, because in my opinion, and as we've talked about it administratively, this is a strong indication of how our community views what's happening in our classrooms and in our schools. So I'd like to turn it over to Cara Wall to take us through that presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Good morning.
As Dr. Keever previewed, today I will be providing a summary of the data collected from this year's Elevate 28 stakeholder survey as compared to last year's data. As a reminder, there are 5 priorities in our strategic plan. Our key priority of academic achievement, college and career readiness, and educational equity is supported by 4 other priorities that enable us to keep our central focus on learning. The annual Elevate 28 survey measures stakeholder perceptions on 2 supporting priorities, as was mentioned, safety and security, and human capital and positive culture. As we move through the later slides, you will see the priority icon that best connects to the data being presented. In October and November, we conducted a survey of WJCC School staff, parents or guardians, and students in grades 4 through 12. This is the second year of this annual survey, as has been mentioned, so we are now able to compare the data from one year to the other. This year, we saw a small increase in staff participation, but a decline in both family and student participation. In total, 5,864 stakeholders responded to the survey, and this presentation will look at their collective and diverse perspectives in division's progress towards our key performance indicators. Each slide will indicate the statement that was posed to the stakeholder groups. In some cases, the question was identical for all 3 groups. However, in some cases, like this one, the statement was tailored to the specific audience. So here, staff members were asked to respond to students at my school feel like they belong. Families were presented with students at my child's school feel like they belong. And for our students, simply the statement, I feel like I belong. On the charts, you will see 4 blocks from left to right. Green on the far left represents strong agreement with the statement. Next, blue is agree, then yellow is disagree, and finally on the far right is the red block of strongly disagree. Data from last year is presented on the chart on the left, and data from this year is on the right. Strongly agree and agree are added together to represent the overall level of agreement with the statement. So in this case, in fall 2025, 97% of staff agree or strongly agree that students at their school feel like they belong. This is a 2-point increase from last year's survey. Looking down the chart on the right, 92% of families agree that students at their child's school feel like they belong, and 91% of students feel like they belong. And I apologize for a little formatting, but you can see the numbers and connect with what I'm saying. As described on the last slide, looking from top to bottom, you will see results from staff, then families, then students, and again from left to right, strongly agree, agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. Here, participants were asked to respond to the statement, adults at my school or at my child's school respect students. While staff perceptions of agreement remain the same this year as compared to last, as noted by the black circle with the 96 label, we saw a 1-point decline in family perception, that's noted with an orange circle, and a 2-point increase in student perception, noted with a green circle. You will continue to see this color coding system throughout the presentation to indicate a change in perception from 2024 to 2025. Next, responding to the statement, students at my school or at my child's school respect other students. Here we saw an increase in both family and student perceptions. Here, students were asked to respond to the statement, there is a teacher, counselor, or staff member to whom I can go for help. And you can see the variations of the statement for staff and families on the slide. Again, we saw an increase in staff and student perceptions.
This one, I will say that we are not going to be satisfied until the student number is 100. Sorry, Cara.
The statement presented here to staff was this question, the staff in this school care about student well-being? Again, we saw a 3-point increase in student perceptions. This statement was only presented to staff. The administrators in this school care about staff well-being. Year-over-year agreement remains steady at 88%. Staff and students were asked to respond to, I feel supported by teachers and staff in this school. Again, here we see an increase of 3 points in student perception. Each stakeholder group, was asked to respond to the same statement here. School staff members are aware of safety and security procedures. We saw a slight increase in family and student perception. And again, an identical statement presented to all 3 groups. Students are aware of safety and security procedures. Here we saw a 1-point decrease in staff perceptions, but a 2-point and 4-point increase in family and student perceptions, respectively. Staff and students responded to the statement, I feel safe at school. The statement presented to families was, my child feels safe at school. Here we saw a 4-point increase in family perceptions and a 7-point increase in student perceptions, which of course is reassuring to see. Stakeholders expressed their level of agreement if their school is well maintained. We saw a 5-point decrease in staff perceptions here, but a 3-point increase in student perceptions. Participants responded to the statement, teachers and staff set high expectations for every student. Here we see a 2-point decline in staff perceptions, but a 1-point increase in both family and student perceptions year over year. Stakeholders were asked to respond to an overall statement. For staff, my school is a good place to work and a good place for learning. And for families and students, that my child's school or my school is a good place for learning. Here we saw a 4-point increase in student perceptions, while staff and family perceptions remain the same. And finally, we added 2 questions to this year's survey as a means of measuring perception changes since we conducted the superintendent's transition survey just in the spring of '25. The question, how well informed are you about WJCC's strategic plan, Elevate 28, seeks to measure the shared understanding of our division's continuous improvement plan. Here you can see that we have made substantial gains in that endeavor, with staff indicating a 23-point increase from spring '25 to fall '25 in being at least somewhat informed of our strategic plan. That rose from 71% to 94%. Families indicated a 12-point increase in their understanding from 48% to 60%. We will continue to be strategic as we communicate and directly align our work with the priorities in Elevate 28 so stakeholders can make intentional connections with the plan. And last but not least, the statement, how confident are you that WJCC is headed in the right direction? Again, we saw a 10-point increase in staff feeling either very confident or somewhat confident, and a 14-point increase in families feeling the same, a sign of our affirmation that our community is feeling optimistic about the future of our school division. In closing, and as a segue to Dr. Keever's next presentation, we also asked one open-ended question. From your perspective, what must WJCC focus on to become the premier school division in the Commonwealth of Virginia? The responses to this question were compared to previous data collected from the Superintendent's Transition Survey and were consistent with the themes that have been identified and will be presented next in Dr. Keever's transition plan. But for the moment, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I have a quick question. As a parent of a WJCC student, I received this survey over email and I think over text many times. I took it, I promise.
Take it more than one time?
I did not take it more than one time.
It's okay. Yeah, that's probably best.
on my honor. But I'm curious, so how did students receive the survey and in what context and how did that, how did you touch the students with this survey?
Great question. Go ahead, Carl, I'm sorry.
So thank you. Students in grade 4 through 12 were asked to participate. At the elementary level, the link was provided to them through their classroom teacher. The elementary ages 4th and 5th grade don't have access to email. At the secondary level, grades 6 through 12, the link was sent directly to them via email, and then we asked for each building to dedicate a time, whether that was through a specific class or so that there was an intentional carve out of opportunity for students to present if they weren't looking at their email.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question, Dr. Keever. On a couple of the categories, you saw some high numbers and disagree. How do you, without additional questions, how do you drill down to what the root cause of that response might be?
I think that, the focus group scenarios are things that we have utilized. So coming out of the perception survey data that we did last fall, we convened focus groups in 2 of the areas, and actually 3 of the areas that were most salient. And one of the focus groups that emerged was this idea of meeting with individual student groups at the secondary level. So we did a student voices tour. And in the other 2 cases, in terms of the perception data, we convened a group of staff to talk about things related to student discipline and behavior. And we convened a group of staff to talk about communication pieces. So what we will do with this data is continue to look for where are the gaps. I think, though, also that the transition report that I'm getting ready to share encapsulates a number of the items that are contained in the various surveys that we have utilized over the course of the last year and sets out with some specific action steps in each of those areas. So as I shared with employees last night on a webinar going through the transition report, we have listened, and the steps that we are laying out now are the specific markers for us to help improve some of those gaps.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Wall on this particular survey? No? Then we will transition to the transition plan.
Transition to the transition report. That's well timed, Madam Chair. a couple things to level set this part of the conversation. The font selection in your board docs item is the font that we would have preferred manifested itself in the earlier presentation and in this presentation. So I'm not exactly sure the disconnect there, but it's probably a user error on my part. Recently, over the summer, a school board member gave me a book entitled Moral Ambition. And it was written by Rutger Bregman, and there's a quote in the beginning of that particular book that I think is pretty impactful to me as I read it, and I would encourage you to consider as we work to serve the students of this school division. I cannot believe that the real purpose of life is to be happy. I think that the purpose of life is to be useful, to be responsible, to be honorable, and to be compassionate. It is, above all, to matter, to count, to stand for something, to have it make some difference that you have lived at all. The opportunity that I have to serve as superintendent of this school division is extraordinary, and I am incredibly thankful for that. There is an energy and a promise and a sense of strength and partnership as I have listened over the course of the last 4.5 months. I've learned specifically that strong schools and school divisions are built on more than curriculum and test scores. They thrive when relationships are nurtured, trust is earned, and everyone shares a common vision. At the center of the work over the last 4.5 months has been this question: what will it take for WJCC to become the premier school division in the Commonwealth of Virginia? I believe that answer sits or lies in the 3 key words that I'll talk about: being student-centered, being collaborative, and being strategic. Over the course of the next several slides, I want to share with this body and the public the transition plan report. Each of you at your place received a copy of that particular report, and there's some nuance to it that I would like to walk through. In the first place, there's an introductory letter from me. I then move into talking about the leadership drivers, which I will explain in more detail. We provide detailed information on the methodology utilized to gather the information. We explain also the emerging themes and stakeholder advice that were received over the last 4.5 months. Then we provide a series of specific priority action steps that are directly aligned to our strategic plan. And one of the reasons I believe that we have seen a growth in staff awareness of the strategic plan is because in every setting where I am, I ask staff, do you know how many priorities are in our strategic plan? And I'm looking for the number 5. If I don't see the number 5, I ask the question again. So in this group, you may hear me say, do you know how many priorities are in our strategic plan? And you would know there are 5. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I appreciate that. And then there's a phased implementation. This work is not happening overnight. This work will not happen in the next several months. It is an ongoing process that allows us to continue to develop and refine our work as an organization. I mentioned the 3 key words for me: being student-centered, being collaborative, and being strategic. And that takes the form of a number of different things, but if we keep students at the center of our work every day, we're in a better place. Several of the other leadership drivers, I think, make complete sense. The one on the bottom I want to expand on just briefly because I believe in the power of gratitude, and I believe in the power of recognizing and acknowledging those that put you in a position to be successful. In essence, thanking the person that gave you the ball in order to score the basket. So I want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to serve in the role of superintendent. As I mentioned, we do have 5 priorities within our strategic plan. That key priority is relative to academic achievement, college career readiness, and educational equity. The supporting priorities do a great job of undergirding that key priority. How are we providing safe and secure school environments? That's physically safe, that's psychologically safe. What are we doing to develop the human capital and culture within our school buildings and staff? How are we communicating and engaging with our community? And then how can we continue to be efficient and effective in our organizational capacity? I mentioned earlier in a response to Mr. Dent that we have, over the course of the last year, endeavored to gather any number of different feedback scenarios, from an employee input process last fall to the stakeholder survey that we released last fall and again this fall. We convened focus groups in the wintertime. The superintendent search process survey allowed for the community and staff and many of you to weigh in on the qualities and characteristics of what was necessary for the next superintendent for the school division. One of the best parts of my job is spending time with students, and we had a chance over the course of 3 or 4 weeks last spring to meet with 20 or 25 secondary students at every one of our schools. And then there was a survey that we released in the spring and summer around the transition into the role for me. There were themes that emerged across those various feedback entities. One of the key themes was there was a desire across all three groups. And when I say all three groups, I mean the community, I mean families, I mean staff, and within that I also mean students. But real-world student-centered learning, that what's happening in the classroom feels like what would happen in the real world, that there is not a disconnect, but there is a connectivity. There was a desire across all of the groups to do a stronger job of providing support and retention for our staff. You can read that generally as compensation. However, I believe it is more than compensation. I believe it's about climate and culture in our buildings and climate and culture in our organization. Mental health and well-being was another emerging theme. The mental health of our students and some of the needs and challenges that our students bring to the table. But then also mental health related to families and the support systems that we put in place for families. And finally, the mental health of the staff on our team. Many people are being challenged now with mental health issues, and how are we providing the services necessary? There was emerging themes around communication, transparency, and voice, being more transparent more often and being able to provide voice and feedback loops for various members of the entity that we serve. I think that transparency is an interesting one. And I think that transparency is an interesting one because oftentimes people want every detail of every decision and would say if you're not providing each individual detail, you're not being transparent. I would counter that, and I think it's important as we go through this process to say transparency to me is that we will endeavor to provide you the rationale for the decision. There are going to be some times that we cannot give every single detail, but we will give you the rationale, we will communicate that clearly, we will communicate that quickly, and we will do the best we can to acknowledge your perspective. Sometimes we're not going to agree, but that's okay as long as we do that agreeably. Access and diversity was something that came through loud and clear in our emerging themes. Access to programming, to your point, Mr. Hipple, how might I, if I'm in this school, take advantage of a program in that school? And are we providing access across our various buildings? And diversity was one that came forward as well. The diversity of opinion within our organization, the diversity of our student body, and the diversity of the course offerings in each of our buildings. Operations, logistics, and facilities received a lot of airplay in the various themes of the survey of the transition process. As I've said in a number of groups, I am aware that not all of our buses are on time every day. I'm intimately aware of that, as Mr. Snipes would tell you, as we talk frequently about people being in place on time. There's also concern often about building maintenance and ensuring that our buildings are well maintained. And if you go back and look at the perception data from the previous survey, you will note some gaps there that we are going to be working to address. And then the last emerging theme that I want to talk about is related to connection to Elevate to 28. I was disappointed in the initial survey results that suggested nearly 2/3 of those that we surveyed did not have a connection to the strategic plan. That was alarming to me. And so that's why you will hear me talk about Elevate to 28 and the 5 priorities in just about every entity and every place that we are. There was also some key advice that was provided, and let me share some of those things: being present and visible and listening authentically, work to expand student opportunities, prioritize staff support and compensation, addressing student behavior and discipline, strengthening communication and transparency. Two other pieces of advice that I thought I'd mention in this setting came specifically from students. One of those pieces of advice, what would you recommend that the new superintendent do as he enters the job? The student wrote, stay hydrated. So I've taken that into consideration. Another student, in responding to that particular question about advice, wrote very profoundly, why are you asking me? You're the one with the job. So strong advice across all stakeholders, and I mentioned those two items to let anybody that may be listening know that I read every single comment, and it's important to me to do that often. What are the key action steps that we'll take related to our strategic plan in this transition process? I'm glad you asked. Under the key priority of academic achievement, college career readiness, and educational equity, here are the specific action steps. Continuing and accelerating work related to literacy and numeracy. I am aware, we are aware, of the data related to our reading scores as a school division. We are aware of the scenario related to our outperforming the average of the state and not being satisfied with that. We can and will do better. That needs to be and continues to be a focus. Initiating work to establish a profile of a learner for the school division and an instructional framework. Let me touch on what a profile of a learner is. Many school divisions utilize what's called a profile of a graduate, and those are 5 or 6 key skills or attributes that the school division says we want every single student to be able to live up to and experience in their time in school. As we talked about it internally, utilizing the term graduate may give the sense that we're only interested in that for our high school students. So we're going to talk about a profile of a learner and look at those skills and attributes that we want all of our students, pre-K through 12, to be able to demonstrate during their career and time with us. I've heard a great deal about screen time usage and being on a computer, and is it intentional, is it focused, is it purposeful? We will be reviewing the screen time across all grade levels and working to determine and ensure that when utilizing computers, it is purposeful. It is not simply to replace a homework packet, but it is for the integration of that technology into the learning process. It is one of the foundational pieces for me last spring was spending time with our honors students, hearing them talk about their honors programming and their honors projects. And that was what I consider to be an exhibition of learning. A student very passionate about a subject, diving into that subject, developing a presentation, a report, something about that thing that he or she was so passionate about, and then standing and being able to talk about it. Why is it important to me? Why is it important, or should it be important to you? I think that can happen, and I think it can happen for all of our students, and I don't think it just happens at high school. I think we need to create the expectation that students talk about and exhibit their learning in multiple settings and multiple grade levels. Expanding real-world and authentic learning experiences. Students obviously want more field trips. Students want the opportunity to visit places and experience things beyond the school walls. That's great. That's also complicated. How do we provide those types of experiences, whether they be virtual or in person? How do we create opportunities for students to show and demonstrate mastery of their learning in assessments other than standardized learning assessments? There is a method for that, and we will continue to press on it. Graduate action plans for every single student. Relative to the comment from Mayor Pons, as I greeted students walking across the stage last June at Kaplan Arena, I extended my hand and learned some things in that process. We need to teach young people how to shake hands. We need to teach young people how to look another person in the eye when they're shaking hands. And then the third thing that I learned, and probably the most important thing, is that I felt like I was able to tell which students had a plan after graduation and which students were simply happy that they were walking across the stage and getting a diploma. We can do better, and I want to ensure that every single one of our students exits WJCC with an actionable plan post-grad. that he or she has applied for jobs, that he or she has applied for college or community college, they've considered the military, that there is a plan that we work on as a school division with family and the student to be able to ensure that once graduation is over, you know what you're doing on Monday morning. There needs to be expansion of opportunities and options for career and technical education. We've talked about that some already this morning. And then finally, the idea of establishing JROTC programming for our high school students is something that over the course of the last 3 months, we've really looked after. And I'm happy to report that we have applied for JROTC programming with all branches of the service and are anxious for one of those branches to take us up on our desire to bring on JROTC programming. Under the priority of safety and security, the first bullet is to establish a key performance indicator related to the number and percentage of students participating in school-sponsored activities. I firmly believe that every single one of our students, all 11,148, have a connection to their school simply beyond the classroom. What is that connection? What are you involved in your school that creates that sense that you wish to be there every single day? I want us to measure it, and I want us to get better at ensuring that 100% of our students have that connection. Expanding efforts to develop student leadership capacity is a passion of mine and has been for years. It's the reason that I got involved in education. This idea that I had a chance to participate in student council and leading other groups of young people or working with adults for our educational process. I believe in teaching students leadership skills and providing that opportunity and capacity building. There need to be, and we will develop, more formal mentoring options, whether that be student to student or with community members. And as I've spent time in the community talking with various groups, I've pitched that idea. In fact, a couple Fridays ago when I met with the James City County leadership group, I mentioned mentoring from that team. And there seems to be a desire for that to occur. That's excellent because we want to see that happen, and we'll take steps to make that priority. Continuing to focus on providing additional behavior support and pathways, interventions for our students across all grade levels. As you talk with our teachers, as you visit schools, you will likely hear about discipline concerns. We need to continue to focus on that. And then finally, under this particular priority, we'll convene a stakeholder group to better understand and make recommendations for stronger student and staff mental health supports. Related to human capital and positive culture, we'll continue to maintain a focus on implementing the compensation study recommendations as we get into fiscal 27 and as we look at fiscal 28. Review and enhance our stipend program to better support staff commitment. I'll be honest, our staff members work incredibly hard, and then you also have a group of staff members that go above and beyond every day for clubs, activities, athletic programs, serving as curriculum leads or department chairs. We need to look at that stipend programming, and while we can't pay you exactly what you're worth, we can increase that compensation for the supports that you provide our young people. There needs to be a wellness focus group for staff. How are we encouraging your health and well-being? Because I believe that that contributes to a positive culture. We heard a lot about professional learning and the desire for more autonomy around professional learning, the desire for more options around professional learning, so we'll establish a focus group there. Our recruitment and our staffing marketing plan needs to continue to be refined. It is harder and harder for the school division to be 100% staffed on the first day of school, both instructionally and support-wise. We need to really look at what are the methods for us to get that accomplished. There is a need at the elementary level to really focus on planning time. Often, if you are at the secondary level as a teacher or staff member, you don't know the challenges that occur at an elementary school in terms of planning time. We are convening a group of stakeholders from our elementary schools, teachers, administrators, specialists, to talk about how do we better utilize the time that we have and how might we create options for increasing that planning time. Throughout my time, there has been feedback related to central support, visibility, and relationships in schools, the us versus them mentality. I preach we. I will talk about we as often as I can, and we will establish specific methods for central support to be more visible and build stronger relationships in our buildings. And then finally, it's important that we formalize our recognition programs to celebrate staff, not to diminish the idea of Teacher of the Year or Support Employee of the Year, but we need to expand on that because there is strong employee work happening across the division, and we want to recognize those folks. Under communications and engagement, in terms of that supporting priority, I will be busy with advisory councils. Some would say, well, that's too many, and I would disagree. And I would disagree because I think that there is a broad spectrum of my role that is about engaging with various entities and understanding perspective to be able to better align our work with the needs of the division. So a family advisory council, a community advisory council, business advisory, instructional, support, and probably the one that's the most fun for me, the Student Advisory Council. We had a chance to meet in November, and it was fascinating, and I can't wait for the opportunity to meet with that group again in December. Our students, and about 10 or 15 from each of our, now I'm getting my numbers right. What's my number, Kathy? Is it 20, right, 20 per school. So about 60 students got together with me in November, and we'll be together through May, talking about the things that are on their mind in terms of their educational experience. We're going to ask schools to establish 3 specific input groups: a school planning council to support the development of school improvement planning at the school. This would include family members, this would include teachers, and it would help the leadership team at schools better broadcast school improvement efforts. An advisory council at each building to help inform the principal of specific issues and concerns that staff members have, and then I will ask each school to establish their own student advisory council. Expanding work related to volunteer opportunities. I believe the volunteers are out there. I believe that it is our responsibility to provide those key opportunities day in and day out in our buildings. I think also we can better utilize partnership opportunities, and then finally recognizing that our students are key when it comes to understanding social media. I would like to capitalize on their strengths and help them tell some of our amazing stories by putting them to work and broadcasting the cool things that are happening in WJCC. And finally, under organizational efficiency and effectiveness, there are several items that I want to mention in terms of the action steps. We do have a data dashboard. That data dashboard can be better, and we want to report forward-facing information related to our key performance indicators and share with the community how we're doing and how we feel about how we're doing. Oftentimes, I think it's important to be open to looking at the organizational structure of the leadership team and be willing to realign that to more effectively serve the division. There needs to be a thorough review of our child nutrition services programming for refinements and enhancements. Similarly, we wish to reestablish a gold standard for facility cleanliness. Each of the departments in School Board Central Office will be asked to look internally at process review work. Do the processes that are in place align with the needs of the organization? Are they clear? Are they written? Do we need to adjust them? And then finally, as we really consider Elevate to 28 and really consider our strategic plan, I believe that it is time for us to reimagine portions of the plan with stronger stakeholder participation and ownership. So in the next coming years, next 18 months or so, I believe we will begin the process of revitalizing Elevate. What does this look like over time? The cadence would be that between now and June of 27, there would be specific phase reporting options for the team to be able to provide for community, to be able to share with staff, our markers along the way. Which the first one happening on April 1st, that is not a typo, and it is not an April Fool's joke. That happens to be the work session date for the school board in April. And then it's important for me to engage with the community as well around this particular plan, and there is a webinar scheduled for December 15th at 6:30 p.m. I'm happy to entertain questions and hear feedback from all the bodies.
Well, I'll just kick off and say, Dr. Kiever, I really applaud you for putting this together and hearing you communicate it. It's never been so clear to me that WJCC is focused on producing well-rounded and prepared students. So thank you for the work that you've done to put this together, inviting conversations from all the stakeholders, I think is absolutely imperative because that makes the organization better. And so good luck, and I'm here to support you.
Thank you, Mayor Pons. I think that, yes, I look forward to
Conversations are always tough.
Yes, sir.
Particularly when we're dealing with our children.
And finances, children and finances.
That's right.
Yes,
But I think one of the phrases that you have in here is to presume good intent or something to that
Presume
effect.
positive intent, yes, sir.
Positive intent, and I believe that. And when you approach things that way, it removes barriers, and I think that's what I see in this. And we're trying to create, again, those well-rounded, prepared students. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I've thumbed through this very casually, but as we were going through, but there's one thing that just absolutely reached out and struck me very
In a
strong.
positive way, Mr.
Positive,
Eisner?
very
Okay.
positive way. And that's on almost the very back page. It's your picture. Sitting in
Photographer, not a magician, Mr. Eisenhower.
sitting in the school bus.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're trying to reach out to every level of the organization, and that's a level of the organization that I think is really difficult for you guys to fill. And I think the fact that you're sitting there tells me that you're willing to reach out and talk to those folks and everybody. I'm impressed, so thank you.
Thank you. Let me share just a quick story about my opportunities to drive a bus. When I was a security assistant at Ocean Lakes High School in Virginia Beach, I had a commercial driver's license and would drive the activity bus for the soccer team. And the most nerve-wracking experience I've had in my 31 years in public education was driving a stick shift school bus from Ocean Lakes High School in Virginia Beach to Richmond through the HRBT.
Ouch.
With the soccer team on board. I white-knuckled it, especially as we were in the tunnel, and it was the most, it was entirely complex. And so I do empathize with the work that our drivers do on a daily basis and try to put myself in that position. So thank you for mentioning that.
I just want to also applaud the fact that you have set out for us a very clear vision of what you hope to accomplish in the school system. You know, this has been an important year. We've recommitted jointly, the school board and administration, the city and the county, to making the school system work most effectively for our community, and to really have a sense of how we're going to accomplish that and measure our progress toward that goal is exceptionally important. And it really does recognize, I think, a number of realities, one of which you made reference to, and that is the fact that with needs for facilities, with needs for programming, with needs to address the compensation and the support for our faculty, staff, and students. All of this does make it imperative that we understand the costs that will be involved and the kind of need that we will have when we think about whether we can accomplish it with the kind of existing levels of support or need more support, to engage the community in understanding what the objectives are and how we think that they can be accomplished. So I applaud the fact that you've done that, and appreciate very much all of the information that you're providing to us. I think it's critically important for us. And I know you're doing this with the community at large on December 15th with a webinar where you're going to be talking about many of these same kinds of points, but the community really needs to hear this information, and we need to be conscious always about the relationship between the objectives that you have, the goals that we're setting, and the ability of the communities to support that with the adequate resources that will be necessary to achieve that goal. That means we've got to demonstrate really strongly that that we've thought through both your objectives and our and requests to us for funding, as well as what the state might provide. So it is going to be a critically important kind of consideration for us going forward. And I want to thank you for laying out your objectives, and say if we can see progress in all of those areas, it will be remarkable. But we can't make any progress without having some sense of what the goals would be. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I think this was very well put together. I'm very impressed with it. And I mean, this group, the school board, the city, the county, to me is starting to really feel like a team. The progress we've made through the years and all that. And it's always been, well, they want this and they're not going to give us that, and back and forth and all that. I think we're at a point where we're starting to agree on, we don't have all the money we need. And one thing we need to definitely do is we need to go after Richmond and get back to where we need to be with funding and that sort of thing. And we need these things for our community. And I'm very impressed, and I like what you've done here. It's a lot of work just to this point, and there's a lot more work that's going to be done to get this where it is. And it gives the citizens a vision. Before it was like the school is doing the school stuff, James City's doing James City stuff, city's doing, but I'm seeing this group coming together more and more, tighter and tighter, going, okay, we don't have everything we need, we don't have all the money we need, but how do we work together? How do we make it work with the amount of money we have? And how do we as a group go to Richmond and say, enough's enough? You've cut us enough. We need more. We need more funding. You can't expect us to carry the entire load. We'll carry a huge amount of load, but you can't expect us to carry it all. So I think that's very important. But I think with this, it's going to let the parents know, the students know, and staff know that the door's open, you're willing to listen, you're willing to sit together with groups and figure out what's going on and how we can address it and what needs to be taken care of. So thank you very much. A good presentation. Good
Thank you,
job.
Ms. Ripple.
I would just like to echo my appreciation for you putting this together. I've heard the word impressed a couple of times, and when you finished, I turned to Stacy and said, very impressive. And I hope that the community will pay attention to what you're trying to do. I was disheartened when I came to one of your stakeholder groups this summer, James River, and I think
It's actually the largest attended group.
right, and there were, 12 people there?
Yes, ma'am.
And I came partially to hear you and to learn a little bit more, and I was impressed then, and I'm impressed now. But only until people start signing on to the webinars and paying a little more attention to what you're trying to do can we move forward. So I hope that this will get the ball rolling and get some more, particularly parents, involved in the school and what's going on there.
Thank you, Ms. Ramsey.
Just to echo a couple points that have been made, and to add one thing in particular, I just want to agree with Mr. Hipple here that, I think that we have had quite a year or two as a group and as groups, and really do feel that same level of joint commitment to making progress in our school division, and to Ms. Ramsey's point, to hope that can expand, that we expand the team, if you will, beyond those who have been engaged thus far, and bring more people into the conversation to make it even stronger. One thing that I want to I was going to say elevate, and then I feel really corny saying that.
That's good. How many priorities do we have?
One thing I want to elevate. Yeah, okay. You have 5.
Thank you.
Sorry. One thing I want to amplify that I really appreciated, that stood out to me in your goals, was about not focusing only on the portrait of a graduate. I actually think this is a very important point to recognize that learning and being a student and being a learner is a multi-year process, and there isn't just one end goal. We have that ultimate end goal of graduation and what comes next, but there's so many steps along the way. And so I actually think that this is, I was pleased to see that at the very beginning, you know, that this is about a person, our young people, and it's a long, like, it's a journey, you know, not just the destination. And I think having that principle undergird all of the steps and all of the plans and all of the goals is actually perhaps unsung, you know, but a critical part of the conversation, because children change every single day, right? Every minute, practically. As the mother of a teenager, I'm in it. But but I do think it is critically important that we don't just say, okay, what's going to happen the day they walk across the stage, which now they're going to know how to shake hands and look somebody in the eye, but not just what happens the day that they walk across the stage, but what happens every day. And I appreciate and applaud your efforts here and the school board doing so much work with you to get us where we are. So thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to follow up on something Mr. Hippel said, talking about Richmond and funding, and I stole this idea last night at a VACO event. Prince William, what they have started doing is at this meeting, they invite their delegation to come to a portion of that meeting, and they talk about their joint priorities for the schools and for education. And I really think that that's something we need to consider moving forward next year, because we're going to have a brand new look in Richmond this year. There's going to be a lot that's flying through, and it may not be a zero beam in on education funding. And I think it's very important that we join together. And there was a time where we would go up with you on your legislative day, which I still think is a good idea. No, logistically, it's really tough to pull off. But I would like us to consider next year having our delegation come to a portion of this meeting and sit at the table with us and talking about, we made a stride last year with the support cap, but there's a lot to be done. And there's going to be a lot of people that are looking for headlines this year, and it may not necessarily be with education funding. So this is a fight that's going to have to continue. And as far, this is, it's extreme. It is impressive. I do worry, though. It is a lot. And so I wish you Godspeed as you tackle this. So,
Ms. Larson, we're all in this together.
okay.
You're on the team.
Okay, all right. If I can help you, you let me know.
As I talk with people and they say, well, your plan, no, it's our plan. Right? So once the plan is hatched, based on all of the community perspective, it's not just about the superintendent's plan, it's the school division's plan, and we're all stakeholders in the school division. So thank you.
And I do appreciate you addressing the third grade reading, because I think what happens often is there's a headline, and the headline grabs the attention, and it is scary. I mean, I read the article the other day comparing us to York as well, and it is, you know, there is there's so much more that goes into that. That I think that you're getting to the meat of that, but while also recognizing that, yes, there's work to be done. But we went to Hornsby the other day, and every classroom we walked into, there was work going on. And whether that work may have been talking to the student that was out in the hall who wasn't having a good moment in the classroom, that's work. That is being done to get academic success moving forward. And that's what often doesn't get recognized. It may not always be in a test. Sometimes it's a discussion going on in a hallway. It's making sure students have enough to eat, that they're going home to a stable environment. And so I appreciate all of that work. So thank you and everybody on your team. Me too, I'm on that team.
There you go. There you go. Thank you, Ms. Larson.
I'm going to make one last comment. That's something that Ruth said, and talking about field trips. I know this was a fun day, but it was a great day when the fifth grade students were at Kaplan Arena.
Wasn't that cool?
it was amazing. There was so much excitement, and they were screaming and having such a wonderful time, and they were all so very well behaved. So I just want to applaud whoever worked with athletics to make that happen. It was super.
It really is about the experiences that our students have access to. I agree. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time?
Since we're dealing with capital, or at least that was the starting point today, I do want to just kind of make one kind of mention. In particular, we talked about the nature of our enrollment pattern right now is that we're anticipating no growth or some decline in number of children in school facilities. And that we're going to shift, therefore, from sort of capacity to programming. And I think we have to be very careful about that because, of course, those numbers can turn on a dime. We're looking at proposals for significant residential development. We are going to see, I suspect, change in the housing market in a sense that the natural process of baby boomers, a very large component of our population, being replaced by subsequent generations may shift pretty quickly the composition of households to more children. So we need to be prepared to recognize that we don't want to lose the capacity we currently have in our facilities either.
Mr. McGlynn, thank you for mentioning that. That gives us an opportunity for the community that's listening or maybe going back and watching it to remind folks that we will be going through a redistricting process. This was supposed to be
my goal, right?
This was supposed to be a feel-good meeting. So we didn't necessarily want to dive into drawing lines and moving people from school A to school B, but because of the pre-kindergarten capacity that will be available to us in the fall of 27, we will be going through a redistricting piece and looking at across the organization, starting at elementary, but then what are the ways to capitalize on the capacity that we have and ensure that we have potentially stronger feeder patterns or potentially better, more efficient transportation routes. So all of those things, to your point, and taking that into consideration in our 5 and 10-year planning is really important.
All right, so this time, last call. Any other questions or comments at this time?
Well, I would just say that a couple of comments. One, this is Mr. Hippel's last joint meeting, and Mr. Hippel is a proud product of WJCC Schools and has made sure to continue to add to the not the capacity, but the number of students that have gone through with his children.
And grandchildren.
And grandchildren, yes. And so I know that we want to thank Mr. Hippel for his passion and everything that he's contributed to these joint meetings over the year, for sure.
Thank you.
Ed, on behalf of the city, thank you and Ms. Ortego for the time and service that you've put into serving this community. I know oftentimes you may think it's a thankless job, but I'm here to say thank you both for all the efforts that you've put into making our community stronger. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna speak for Doug and Stacy. I was gonna take this opportunity, whether they liked it or not, and Jim and John, and just say what Ms. Ortego, thank you for everything that you did, most especially during our contract negotiations, coming to the table and all the effort, but all the effort that you've given, and you've been an outstanding chair. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all. It's been an honor to serve in this capacity, and it's been a wonderful team. And I just want to say, on behalf of the school board, thank you for all of your support along the way. And we wanted to make it clear that we heard your requests over the last few years for more data, more information, more collaborative experience. And that was intentional on our part to really elevate the relationship and to be more of a team, because we are all in this together. This isn't us wanting something and you not giving it to us or giving it to us. We are all a team. We're all one community. And so we are very pleased that that's come across thus far. We are proud of our new superintendent, and we, as a school board, I would say I speak on behalf of all 7 of us. It's important to us to set high expectations, not just for our students. That starts at the top. And while we do recognize that this is impressive and very ambitious, that's the standard we need to set at the very top, and that's the standard that we need to set throughout our school division. So, yeah. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay, motion for adjournment for the board?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Stevens, call the roll.
Mr. Hippel. Aye. Ms. Larson.
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye,
Motion carries.
we're adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
So I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McKay.
Ms. Williams. Aye. Ms. Kernscher.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye. We are adjourned.